Kupina kupe makhaya amadolobheni aseThekwini lakhona. A warm welcome to this week's edition of Yilungelo Lakho. It's your ride. Silethela kuhlelo mamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Siyatholakala futhi naku SABC Plus. Mina ke ngiSimphiwe Ncongwane. Bekunene. Uma ke ushonelwe kunedidzingo ke letifana nemafa lekumele ukuthi ulungise utawumela ke kuhamba lehhovisi lemgcini mafa phecelezi iMaster of the High Court. Kepha ke nawucabanga tinkinga ke maquela mathe kuthiwa ngena ngalapha nalapha uye ehhovisi leli uye 4th floor. Sikhathi ke lesithe ke sekulinzela kusitwa nalethi ngetinga letiningi uvele uphelelwe ngumoya. Kepha ke manje konke lokho sekushintshile asesingene endzabeni yethu namhla kuve ukuthi ingabe lokho kushintsha kanjani.
Umgcini mafa wenkundla ephakamileyo iMaster of the High Court ngelasemzini yindawo uninzi olunyanzeleka ukuba lukhe lufike kuyo ukuyokusombulula imiba ngemiba ephethelene noshicilelo okanye ubhaliso kwanolawulo lwamafa. Ukanti le ofisi yomgcini mafa yenkundla ephakamileyo ikwaquqwa nangabo bafuna ukusombulula imiba ephethelene nolawulo lwengxoamali ezithile kwanezo zingamafa abantwana okanye iGarden Fund. Uninzi luthi lusazile lunjalo emva kokulahlekelwa lunyanzeleke ukuba luquqe kwezi ofisi lume kwimikhozo emide iyure luquqiswa lubuyelela ukuzokusombulula imiba ngemiba ephethelene nolawulo kwanolwabiwo lwamafa. Akuphelelanga apho abantu bakwakhalaza ngamaxwebhu ahlala elahleka ii-imeyile kwanemfonomfono ezingaphendulwayo ngamagosa kwanothotho lwezinye izikhalazo. Kusenjalo nenkqubo kacimidanya we-load shedding awuyekanga ukuba ngumqobo. Kodwa ke ngoku sekungathi onke lo magingxigingxi nemeko ezikhwinisayo zoba yinto yakudala nanjengoko ngoku sekuziswe inkqubo ususa yonke le miqobo. Inkqubo evumela uluntu ukuba lwenze yonke into oluyifuna kule ofisi womgcini mafa lungawubekanga umgcondo kwezi ofisi. Kaloku le nkqubo ebizwa iMaster's Deceased Estate Online Registration System yenze zonke izinto zalula nabani na angazenzela konke akufuna kule ofisi ngobuxhakaxhaka be-intanethi. Konke oku umntu ekwenza ngexesha lakhe ekwakhe. Uluntu olusebenzisa le nkqubo lukhuthazwa nje ukuba luvundlele ukuba ngamaxhoba obuqhophololo obenzeka kwi-intanethi. Phaphama Changana Dube, Yilungelo Lakho.
Alright, asase ke likhefu stop nje sibuye khona manje leli lungelo lakho. Sanibukela bekunene ke namhla ke sikhuluma ke kabanti ngehlelo kule online system ke lutawusita ukuthi ke lutawusita kanjani umphakathi. Asimukele ke Adv Kanyane Mathibe lobuya ke ehhovisi le Master of the High Court or Master's Office sibe na Jabu Hlatshwayo lomele ke umnyango wetebulungiswa ke. We'll talk to him in a moment, but for now asasiqale ke ngawe ke Advocate. Thank you so much for joining us akumele hlelweni.
Thank you.
Chazela kabanti ke ukuthi ke i-deceased estate yini nekuthi ke lihhovisi la Master yini inzima lelidlalako when it comes to deceased estate?
A deceased estate, Simphiwe, it comes into an existence when a person dies, leaving property. The property could be in the form of a vehicle, it could be in the form of money, it could be in the form of a house, or leaving a will or a document that is intended to be a will. And that is when we call that a deceased estate. And in terms of what the role of the master in the process is, the master's role is to make sure that they administer the estate in appointing an executor who is either nominated by a will or who is nominated by the family of the deceased.
Okay.
That is what we do, and also making sure that the account, when it's submitted, where there is a will or it's greater than 250,000, then the executor follows or closes the account in terms of the Estates Administration Act.
And I do understand ukuthi ke lehovisi lenu selilonche ke i-online or deceased estate online registration system when people can report a death from the comfort of their own homes. Sichazela kabanzi ukuthi ke isebenza kanjani lo system leyo, just step by step processes.
The system, in terms of how it works, the first thing that a user must do in the event or unfortunate event of a death in the family is that they must register themselves as a user on the system. And that is not to say that there will always be a death in that person's family, but it will also give them access to other Department of Justice services.
Right.
So once they're registered on the system, then we do validations with the Department of Home Affairs. We validate that the person who's applying is indeed alive, it's not a robot, and from there they can then now apply for the deceased estate, which is report the estate of the deceased, their loved one. In reporting that estate, they need to say who the deceased was, with the ID is validated against Home Affairs. From there they need to then say what property did they have and who are the next of kin, who are the heirs of the estate. Once they have captured all the information that we require from them, documents that usually they would have had to submit in the office of the master are now automatically generated by the system, and they can then download them, sign them. Once they're signed, simply upload them back into the system.
Okay.
Yes.
Yini ke umsebenzi wehovisi la master of the High Court when it comes to deceased estate? So does it only have to do with instances where a person has died intestate or without leaving a will, where the master of the High Court then has to come in terms of the disbursement and the distribution of the estate?
No, whether the deceased died testate, which means they've got a will, or whether they died intestate, we would then be responsible for the administration of the estate. Okay. So where a person died testate, that means there is a will. There's clarity in terms of who the heirs of the estate are, because they would be named in the will, and the will would also name the executor or the nominated executor. Now, in terms of Section 14 of the Administration of Deceased Estates Act, we then are mandated to then nominate or appoint the person who's been nominated in terms of the will as the executor of the estate. Where they are intestate, that means there is no will, we then follow the Interstate Succession Act, and where we then look at the heirs of the estate in terms of spouse. We look in terms of the children, and in the absence of spouse, in the absence of surviving descendants or children, then we would look at parents, we would look at siblings, and so forth. Yes.
So in cases where someone has died testate, lokusho ukuthi ke I-will ikhona, and nayo le will isebaleni, it made everything so clear ukuthi ke bobani ma beneficiaries of the estate, nekuthi ke ngubani who will be the executor of the estate. So how then does the master of the High Court come in?
So the master of the High Court gets involved in the appointment of the nominated executor in terms of the will.
Okay.
And the original will must still be lodged with the master of the High Court.
Okay.
So once this estate is reported, if it's greater than 250,000, then a letter of executorship would be issued by the master of the High Court.
Okay.
And it's issued to the appointed or the appointed executor. His job is then to make sure that he advertises in the Government Gazette for all the creditors of the deceased estate to come forth and make claims. So he has to do that within a prescribed period of time. Once that is done, he has to make sure that he puts together an account or inventory of the deceased consolidated estate. What did he have in terms of liquid assets, in terms of immovable assets, in terms of movable assets, investments, life covers. What did the deceased leave, and to whom did he leave it to? And make sure that once, if there is also an estate duty which we have to, the deceased estate would have to pay to the South African Revenue Service, then he would have to make sure that is also paid to the South African Revenue Service.
Okay.
Once all of that is done, he would bring the account to the Master of the High Court, where we would examine the account and make sure that it has been finalized in accordance, or it has been consolidated in terms of the Act. If there are questions, we send them back. Where we are satisfied, we issue what we call a notice of distribution, allowing him to then finally distribute the estate to the heirs of the estate.
Manje njengoba ke bese sichazile phambilini ukuthi le office lenu launche ke i-online registration system of the deceased estate. Do I have to physically attend the office or go to the office of the Master of the High Court ngicala ke le process noma ke ngayiqedza everything online?
You can do everything online except with the lodgement of the original will. So in terms of the law, the original will must still be lodged with the office of the master in your jurisdiction. So the jurisdiction is actually linked more to where the deceased lived prior to passing away for 12 months. So that would be the jurisdiction where you would lodge this estate. So if there is no will, you can do everything online. You would not need to visit the office. So where there is a will, that means the deceased died testate. The only thing that you would do is complete everything online, and all you do, make an appointment with the master to lodge the will, submit the will, and that will be the end of the process.
Great stuff. Now, Baba Hlatshwayo, let me also bring you into this conversation. Kusichazela kabanti ke ma advantages of this online system nekuthi ke si accessa kanjani noma ke singena kanjani kuyo, usichazele step by step.
Yeah, thank you. So because this is an online system, it means you don't have to have physical contact with the master's officials. You can sit in the comfort of your own home. If you have a phone, you can actually use your phone to log into the system and register, and actually register the estate, through the system without having to physically go there. So if you look at, if you have that ability, it means you are saving in terms of cost, because transport costs sometimes, there's people who are in rural areas, so you're saving on that, Number two, the time, of course, it takes to actually physically go there and queue, So in this case, you have whether your cell phone or whether your computer at home, as long as you can register, as long as you have the network connection, I know, it's a big issue, the issue of data in South Africa, but, there's lots of free Wi-Fi spots, So again, also because there's this feedback mechanism that is embedded in the system, meaning once you register, you get feedback of the confirmation, whether, of your registration account, and also once you register the deceased estate on the system, you get confirmation, and the security also. I think it also assists to avoid a whole lot of fraud that is taking place, because...
No, security, just how secure is it is? Security.
Okay. Maskulmang security, we're talking about ensuring the information that is loaded into the system by the one who's using the system, it stays original. It's received to us as is, And there's nobody who can actually log into the system on behalf of the applicant and act as if he's the applicant. So, for instance, how we do that, we ensure that there's feedback. What I mean by that, messaging, bi-directional messaging. Meaning, when you register, before we can actually confirm any further activity, there's OTP that is sent through your cell phone. If you're an email address, there's OTP that is sent so that we can verify that it's exactly you. Sometimes people can use people's user accounts, act as if they are those people. So that's the type of security I'm talking about. The second type of security I'm talking about, it's about the letter of authority and the letter of execution. Those are mostly abused, you know, in our communities because, of course, they enable people to have access to the estate. So in that letter, now we've embedded into it a QR code, which actually gives us an ability to encrypt the information of the applicant or of the deceased estate itself, meaning it cannot be reproduced. Once you have it, you are certain that you are the only one who's got access to it. And again, if you have to use it in a financial institution, they can easily verify it using the QR code that you actually, you know, the applications are usually free. You can download them and have them on your phone.
Yeah. So, Baba Hlatshwayo, siyathi ukuthi phambilini ke bekunenzaba yokuthi hundreds if not thousands of cases ahleli ehhovisi la master ngoba they are not wound out because ama documents alahlekile noma sekuvele inkinga lethithita naloko. So with this online system, can you categorically confirm ukuthi nyalo ngeke kusendeka lokho nekuthi ke ema turnaround times ukuthi ke icase ingasolveka emva kwesikhathi esinganani?
Yes, I can certainly confirm that. Why am I saying that? Because now the information that we capture, the documents that we capture, they get digitized and get stored into the system. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what is important is that the system should have the ability to always produce that information or store that information in a secured manner. So we are ensuring that, you know, we don't have one repository, so we duplicate, you know, the documents in the system because it's like storage, you know, because it's in a digital format. So because of that, the loss of documents is not really, you know, it cannot really take place.
Okay.
You know, because those documents are stored in the system, and I don't want to say they can easily be reproduced, but the issue is the information as you capture it, it gets collated and it gets associated with your information, and it will always be available.
Okay, all right. Okay. We'll continue our discussion after the break. Please do join us after this break. Yilungelo Lakho, don't go away. So ngolo futhi mbukele tincingo tethu sesivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungahlanganyela kunye nathi ungasishala licingo khona manje ku 011 714 0671 noma ke 011 714 0672 ungasithumela futhi ne WhatsApp ku 060 844 9857 ungasithinza futhi na ku Facebook noma ke usithumele i-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Namhla ke sikhuluma ke ama deceased estate noma ke umsebenzi kule office le Master of the High Court kuthi ke nabe kushonele isihlobo ureporta kanjani ke lokushona lokho nekuthi ke indzaba temafa li office le Master of the High Court litadzingisa kanjani. Namhla ke sina Advocate Kanyane Mathibe kanye ke na Jabu Hlatshwayo from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Now Advocate, sichazela abanje ukuthi ke yini tinkinga lendibene nato ke lile office la Master of the High Court nekuthi ke leto tinkinga leto angeke inti affect abantu labatawubika noma ke batawucala ke iprocess yokucala i-deceased estate?
The problems that we had, or the challenges that we had in the Master's office, accused amade in all our offices across the country, and we had challenges with manual documents where my documents are lahleke sometimes. And we had issues, obviously, with incomplete documents from our clients where to be figure, be submitted documents, but and as well as after that. So these are some of the challenges that then triggered us to develop or innovate in this manner, to go online. Now, will they not reoccur? No, the challenges will not reoccur because on the system itself, these are the documents that are required. Awudingi ukuthi ufonele umaster umbuzo ukuthi amaphi ama documents fanele nawo because the system is ukutshela ukuthi these are the documents that you need to upload into the system. Okay. And number two, it cuts out all the queues. Awudingi ubuya kwa master ubike estate because you can do it in the comfort of your home. Awudingi nje nokuthi uthi uyoqueue kwa master when your issue is complicated. Why? Because you can set an appointment at the time of your choosing when your issue is complicated. You don't need to go and queue. sifonele, or go on the line and set up the appointment and choose the time that is preferred by you.
Alright, Baba Hlatshwayo, siyathi ke ukuthi kune nabakele labenda umkhonyovu. They start mimicking i-website ye-Master of the High Court noma i-Department of Justice. Sibona kanjani ke ukuthi i-website ngiyo ngile yenu ngoba khona nabantu lababese bakopa i-website ifane ncamashi nale website yenu bese ke bacela ke ama details ebantfu ukuthi bawufake le website leyo.
Yeah, that's a very important question. So what we have done through the QR code, because what is important is that what is in the letter is actually embedding information of the person who has been appointed, whether as an executor or authorized to do so. So in terms of verifying the authenticity of that letter, what happens is that when you click on that QR code, it sends you to our website. Okay? Now, in terms of the mimicked website, it is not really possible because now only when the verifier uses some manual intervention of typing the URL that is supposed to, that talks to that website that is mimicked. But the power of the QR code is that it generates a link, okay, that you just click on and it takes you straight to our website. Now, our website has got what we call an SSL sort of security, okay? That it's got a sort of a padlock as a sign. So that security certificate is allocated to the Department of Justice. So it is very important that when somebody is verifying the authenticity of that letter after clicking the QR code, it's very important that the website that they see that padlock next to the actual address, which is icmsweb.justice.gov.za and the rest. Why I'm saying that? Because it means that if it takes you to something else, it will never take you to something else unless they verify. So what is important is that the verifier must not have any manual intervention whenever they verify that certificate. They must just depend on that QR code. When they click on it, it should directly take them to our website, which will give them the information of whoever has been authorized to have that letter.
So le website yemdubulo noma ke the fake website,
yes,
yona ke iyayikhipha ini OTP noma ke one time pin?
No, it won't. Actually, it won't. Now, what I'm trying to say, Uguti, the only way that this system could be abused is only when there's somebody maybe internally and or tech savvy such that anga manipulate a QR code, because the QR code EI encrypted the information, which means you cannot just see the information as is. That's why it sends you directly to that website, and you know that it's easy to view, to say, okay, this is the information that is actually corresponding with whatever is on the letter.
So the most important thing ukuthi ke bantu kumele bakwati ukuthi ke nangabe uqale i-process of reporting a death or a deceased estate, yenda sure ukuthi ke i-OTP ikhona for you to process or to continue to the next step. Ngoba phela if OTP ingekho, then chances are ukuthi ke it might be a duplicated website.
No, that's true, because whoever engages with us online will always have an OTP number generated and sent to his cell phone or to his email address to actually confirm every activity that he's doing with us.
Okay. Advova, nangabe ke kuna gogo Dlamini noma ke mkhulu Mathebula labangazange basebenzisa ama cellphone, abangazange basebenzisa ama computer, who are not tech savvy, bona ke bayasitakala yini ukuthi ke uqala le process?
Yes, they will get help. What we're asking the elderly, also those that are not tech savvy, is continue to visit us, because we will help you on staff-assisted, what we call staff-assisted kiosk. So in the staff-assisted kiosk, because we know you're not tech-savvy, a master's legally trained personnel will take the elderly or the non-tech-savvy person and will assist them in registering everything online in a secure environment in the master's office. But if they are comfortable to ask their kids or to ask their grandkids to assist them, we are encouraging them to do that, to say, grandkids, kids, assist the elderly in registering estates. But if they are uncomfortable, because people are not as they were before, so you can't just trust anybody. So we're saying, still continue coming to us. There are a service kiosk. If you are tech savvy but auna you computer endlini, you can still come to the master's office and use our facilities in that secure environment. If you're not tech savvy, still come to the master's office, and our staff who are legally trained, will still assist you.
Okay. Great stuff. Good to hear that. Asishiye lapho ke mbukele sisishelele ngasetitolo hlala kanye nathi ungasabuyi ungasanyakati siyabuya khona manje.
Your Worship, I'm going to withdraw the matters against the following accused. Natasha Jansen, will you please stand up? Mr. Mir and Ramadullah.
Sawubona futhi mbukele, khumbula ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye yale nkulumo yethu namhlanje ukushayela licingo khona manje ku 011 714 0671 noma ke 011 714 0672. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 060-844-9857 or interact with us on Facebook. Let's take our first caller. Sina Priscilla ke ulapha eBinoni. Sekumukela ehleleni, sawubona. Priscilla eBinoni, sekumukela ehleleni, sawubona.
Kunjani?
Siyaphila kunjani?
Ngiyaphila baba.
Khuluma nathi mama, what's on your mind?
Okay, bengicela ukubuza nginombuzo regarding letter of authority from High Court.
Okay.
Kusho ukuthi umamkhulu wami, ne? Wathatha makuceda ukushona ugogo. Indlela zange ichinje ama estate agogo zange reportwe and all that.
Okay.
So umamkhulu yena wahamba ngaphambili kwabosifaka abayi3 wahamba wayochinja i-title deed ukuthi ibize ngaye indlu yabayakhe. So manje abomamkhulu bambayalwa since 2005 balwa bafuna i-letter of authority yokuthi balwise le title deed ukuthi i-revoke ibuyisele emuva till namhlanje abakhona ukuyithola. Saze sahamba sayofuna ama-lawyer sathola ama-lawyer nama-lawyer nasatshela same thing ukuthi kunzima ungene e-high court ukuthi kutholakale i-letter of authority. And manje sihleli kabuhlungu lapha endlini because lo mntana lo uthi indlu ibhaliswe ngomamakhe. And manje sekuba uye ngathi owner manje u-owner abanikazi bendlu. Kusho ukuthi kuziwa ngayo yonke into. Mina uzowangenzela i-protection order ukuthi akasangifuni lapha. So sidinga usizo kunini and badala lo muntu umamkhulu wami oqala una 74 years lo omunye una 70 uzowashaywa i-stroke ebese kuba umamami last born lo othathe indlu without knowledge yalaba abayi3 ushonile. So fanele ukuthi senze kanjani ukuthi yonke lento ifixwe kahle.
Alright,
because
Priscilla.
we've been fighting imali yaphela sibe sihamba ama-lawyer singena siphuma senzani sicela usizo.
Okay, Priscilla, thank you so much for your call. It's a very, very difficult issue, but still out to ubugele SABC 1 khona manje. Advocate ukhona ke utakusita ke kuleyo ndzaba leyo. Advocate, it's a very, very contentious issue that is faced by so many individuals, so many families when it comes to, fraudulent applications and those who change details on the system to favor certain people. Ngicela ukuthi uyiphendule ke ndzaba.
According to what Priscilla has said, it looks like Ugogo went to the Master of the High Court and reported an estate, but at the same time she says the estate was never reported because there would never have been a change in title deed without a letter of authority. Now, Tena Master, what we look for when we validate the information of the deceased is it goes to Home Affairs. Home Affairs gives us the associations to the deceased. Who are their children, who are their siblings, who are their parents. Now, from the ages that Priscilla has said, it would then be the period when Home Affairs was not capturing relationships between individuals. Meaning, umamkhulu wakhe came to the master's office and said, I was the only child. And in that instance, then, and I'm not saying that is exactly what happened, I am assuming based on the information she's giving, that what could have happened is on the basis of that information and the validation that we did with Home Affairs, we check are there any other kids linked to the deceased? Because that information from 1983 backwards, you would not find associations with the National Population Register. I think it was from 1983 till now where children are linked to their parents, children are linked to their fathers and their mothers. But where there is no linkage, we rely on the truthful submission. That's why ikona into ebizwa declaration that they have to sign what the information I'm submitting is true. Now in this instance, Priscilla, now, she says she's in Benoni. I then urge her, depending on how much the value of the estate was. If Gunendlu, that means, and it has not been changed to anybody else's name, they need to come into the master's office. We will cause a family meeting and where we can then sit around the table and find out when was the letter issued, get proof if they've got a URN number or a reference number for the estate that was registered in the master's office, we would be able to assist them.
So they should approach you without involving or engaging the services of a lawyer.
I think first approach us so we can find out who was appointed in the estate.
Okay.
The first step is who was appointed in the estate. Then from there, once we then open up the file, should we have this estate reported, they can then inspect the file themselves, see who was appointed, on what basis, what did they submit when they submitted to us. And from there, once then they are satisfied with the information, if there is a need to take it to a lawyer, then they can.
So who bears the honors then of verifying the familial relations? Nomage umsebenzi wabani wokuchecka ukuthi ke nangabe qhamuka lo uthi mina I'm the only child. Then does the Master of the High Court take his word for it?
So that's why we do validations. The system automatically, even now without us going online, our core system called ICMS was checking against information that is contained with Home Affairs. Now, if Home Affairs comes back with Simphiwe has siblings, so he can't be the only one reporting the estate. What we ask for is what we call nominations from the other siblings. What bamketile Simphiwe yini, what abe executor of this estate. If batika abamketanga, then we cannot proceed.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you familiar with case Lenjangaya Priscilla? I mean, people making fraudulent claims and so on. Now, obviously, Master, what is it doing to try to deal with such issues?
Yes, we are familiar with cases where people come in, and especially with the ages that she's mentioned, and they say, no, I was the only child. If that information, based on a check to Home Affairs, comes out without any other relation, we would, based on the truthful submission of this person, that's why they sign a declaration.
Okay.
And the declaration would say, should there be something else that comes up, then they need to be held accountable. But what do? We are currently engaging with the Department of Home Affairs in terms of how do we resolve this issue. Is it through an outreach program where we go around our communities and we encourage people to come, either link themselves to their parents while they're still alive,
okay,
so that we don't experience issues like that in the Master of the High Court. But we
okay,
have engagements with the Department of Home Affairs.
All right, thanks for making that point. Let's take our next caller. Sina Khanyisile ulapha ke Hammersdale eNatal. Sekumukele ehleleni sawubona.
Yebo sawubona njani?
Siphilile kunjani mama?
Ngiyaphila. Ngisacela ukubuza ukuthi ukuthi wawune-letter of authority incwadi by mistake iyalahleka. Ngingakwazi ukuphindela khona eHammersdale baphinde bangenzele enye.
Okay, ukhona ke advocate utakuphendula khona manje.
Yes, it's possible. If ilahlekile, then you can come back and we can do a copy for you. There is a cost to copies, and but we would then verify that you were the person that was appointed. If kuwena, then it's not a problem. We can give you a copy.
Okay, siyathemba ukuthi kuphendulekile lapho Khanyisile.
Okay. Ngizabuyela na ukuthi ndazo zonke ezingangihambe nazo. Isifike my ID nama-settings zami so ngiya. The ID pen.
All you need is your reference number of the estate that you reported, and all you need is your ID number for verification. You do not need to bring your reporting documents all over again.
Okay.
All right, Khanyisile siyabonga kakhulu ke kuhlanganyela noma ke usishayela khona manje. Now, I think for purposes of giving context to this, or maybe another issue Khanyisile, yini lama documents lakafuneka? What are some of the key documents that we need to produce to start the process?
So now, because we've gone online, it's a beautiful thing, because the minute you get onto the system is okutshela to which are the documents that are required. So one of the key documents is the death certificate of the deceased.
Okay.
There's a document that we call a death notice. It's a master's document that needs to be completed. You need to bring your ID. If the deceased leaves heirs, that is beneficiaries, and these beneficiaries need to nominate, in where it's interstate, they need to nominate the person they are appointing or they are choosing to be the executor of the estate. That's where, if you do not have these nominations, we cannot proceed with the registering of the estate. The other things that you need to also bring is where you were married to the deceased. You need to say, you need to bring your marriage certificate. You also need to say a declaration of the marriage. How was the marriage regulated? Was it in community of property, or was it out of community of property? So obviously there are customary marriages that by default it's by community of property, but we need a declaration of marriage. So there are several documents, but the most important key documents also are the ones that I've mentioned, and an acceptance of the master's direction in case where you are appointed as an administrator or as an executor. You need to then accept a trust as an executor. So that is the declaration that we are entrusting this estate unto you. Yes.
All right, now Hlatshwayo, I will engage you in just a moment, but would like to sincerely apologize for the bad quality sound in parts of our transmission. The issue is being attended. Komanje asasiphinza sibuyela ngasetitolo. Futhi Mbugela, participation lines are still open for you to take part. Ungashada icingo khona manje ke ku 011-714-0671. You can also email your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungasenza futhi na ku Facebook. Lena ke i-segment yethu yekugcina ngci. And in just before we wrap up the show, ungasichazela kabanti ke ukuthi ke khona ke nabantu abasebenzisa naku bathi public wifi noma ke i-wifi yesive lesebenziswa noma ngangibani. So ungaseluleka ukuthi singayisebenzisa le wifi leyo nekuthi it won't compromise the security of the security of the application.
Yeah, no. In that case, mfethu, i-public Wi-Fi, it enables you ukuthi ube ne internet connectivity. So it doesn't matter whether the public Wi-Fi is public. In any case, that's its nature. What is important is that ukhone ukuconnecta on the internet, on the network. Okay, so the security, even if you're using public Wi-Fi, because it just gives you connectivity, it doesn't necessarily mean because it's public, therefore public will have access to your profile. Okay, so what is important is for you, for the user to have e-registration, okay, to register and have the user ID and the password.
Yes.
Okay, so even if you forget your password, you can actually renew your password, but when you renew it, it will send an OTP. OTP is very important. I would suggest that if really you're not familiar with using email address, you don't always access it all the time, and you're using public Wi-Fi, maybe it's better to use your cell phone. You understand? Because in some of the cases, you can go to a public internet cafe, maybe your ungaloganga out in your email, and then somebody else gets access to your system. So for me, it's because people baswele, they don't have private internet connections. One can even argue that the internet connection you get through your telecommunications company, your MTN, your Vodacom, yes, it doesn't necessarily mean it's private also, So what is important is the internet connectivity, Baba.
Okay.
And it's safe to use that.
Trying to weigh in on that, Advocate?
Yes, I would just like to say the information of the deceased is not a private, it's not as private as people think. When you come into the master's office, what we would like you to keep safe now that you're online is the OTP that we send to you to verify that we are indeed dealing with that person. But I think where manipulation and fraud used to happen in deceased estate was not really in connectivity. It was in the manipulation of the appointment letter that we used to give as letters of executorship. Now with the QR code that Mr. Hlatshwayo has spoken about, that is embedded in the letter, it's when you get to the bank to claim the benefits, nobody can go on your behalf, Simphiwe. Nobody can go on your behalf and go and claim the benefits from your deceased a loved one. Only you can present yourself to any banking institution, and by scanning that QR code, they need to see only you in front of them,
okay,
the appointed executor.
As we wrap the show, unfortunately we're out of time. Just briefly, your parting shots and what people need to know that's very important.
I think what they need to know is we encourage all people to use the online system. Not only does it save time, it saves money, but what we would also like to say is we've rolled out only in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria, and Thohoyandou, and we plan to roll out nationwide by January 2024. And by the time we roll out and we get to your areas, we will do outreach programs to train people on the use of the system.
Okay, Hlatshwayo, your final word?
Yeah, for me, really, it doesn't necessarily mean that you use the system when you register the estate. You can also use it to book the appointment to the office.
Oh, really?
So like she was saying, they've been going, maybe the queues, yenza abantu ukuthi banqene ukuya e-officini. So when you've registered on the system, you can actually even book for an appointment. So you know that if I've booked for my appointment to be only at 12:30, to be at 12:30, you only go there at that time.
Appointment gani uthe advovo, I don't need to go to the office, everything can be online.
No, I'm saying in a case whereby now you have to have a meeting, like he said, to verify, whereby everybody is going to say, no, this is the the valid whatever wife or whoever, so rather than people going and queuing for the whole day. So I think that could also be utilized.
Okay, but Hlatshwayo, Advocate, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Siyabonga. Bonke lokubukela sesifike emaphuthelweni ehlelo lethu namhla ngitsike ngibonge ivakashi lethu ngedikhathi dabo ngithanda ukuba kanye nani babukele ngikuba nathi kuze kube manje asihlane futhi ngesikhathi sesitako lapho ke sitabe silethela ke lenye indzaba letawuthinza wena nimalungelo akho njengemthengi la kumahamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure satfolakala futhi na ku SABC Plus mina ke Simphiwe Ncongwane and the rest of the team sithi nisale kahle. Do have a great week ahead. Cheers.
Hallelujah.